My dear brothers and sisters, as the light of Fajr gently breaks the darkness of the night, Allah gives us a moment that is quiet, pure, and full of promise. A time when the heart is soft, distractions are few, and the doors of mercy are wide open. Allah reminds us in the Quran that He is Rizq, the ultimate provider. Rizq is not only money. Rizq is peace in the heart, strength in the body, Barakah in time, righteous children, and contentment with what Allah has written for us. After Fajr, when the angels have witnessed your prayer, when the day has just begun, this is a powerful moment to turn to Allah with humility and trust. The Prophet taught us to ask Allah for provision with certainty, not desperation. With calm reliance, knowing that what is written for you will never miss you. Take a deep breath, sit calmly after Fajr, and recite this dua with presence of heart. Allahumma inni as'aluka rizqan tayyiban, wa ilman nafi'an, wa amalan mutakabbalan. O Allah, I ask you for pure and lawful provision, beneficial knowledge and deeds that are accepted. Do not rush this dua. Feel it, believe it. When you ask Allah for tayyib rizq, you are asking not just for more, but for better. Rizq that brings you closer to Allah, not further away. Rizq that carries peace, not anxiety. Rizq that benefits you in this life and the next. In 2026, many people will chase wealth with fear and restlessness. But the believer begins the day grounded, placing trust not in numbers but in Allah. Remember, rizq is not delayed because Allah forgets. Sometimes it is delayed because Allah is preparing you. Stay consistent. Even if you do not see immediate change, know that every sincere dua is heard. Either Allah gives you what you ask, protects you from harm, or stores it for you as reward in the akhirah. End your dua with gratitude. Thank Allah for what you already have, because shukr unlocks increase. May Allah place barakah in your mornings, widen your provision, purify your earnings, and grant you contentment that no amount of wealth can buy. Ameen. Fajr is not just a prayer that marks the beginning of the day, it is a doorway. A doorway that opens when the world is still quiet, when most hearts are asleep, and when the soul of the believer is most awake. There is a reason Allah chose this time to make the angels witness our prayer. There is a reason the Prophet emphasized the barakah of early mornings. Fajr carries a weight that no other moment of the day carries, because it is wrapped in sincerity, effort, and intention. When you rise for Fajr, you are choosing Allah over comfort. You are leaving the warmth of sleep, the softness of the bed, and the silence of the night for the call of Allah. That choice itself is worship. And after the prayer ends, many people rush back into sleep, unaware that they are walking away from a moment overflowing with mercy. The time after Fajr is not empty time. It is alive. It is a time when the heart is uncluttered, the mind is clear, and the connection with Allah is still warm. Allah places special blessings in the early hours. The Prophet made dua for barakah in the mornings of his ummah. This barakah is not always visible in numbers, but it is felt in ease, clarity, and stability. A short time after Fajr can feel longer than hours later in the day. Tasks done then feel lighter. Du'as made then feel deeper. Thoughts become calmer. This is not coincidence. It is divine design. The stillness after Fajr carries a kind of peace that cannot be recreated later. The noise of the world has not yet begun. Phones are quiet. Responsibilities have not yet piled up. At this time, the heart can speak honestly to Allah without interruption. It is a moment where sincerity flows naturally because there is no audience except Allah. This is why du'as made after Fajr are different. They rise from a place of humility, not haste. Rizq is deeply connected to this time. Allah distributes provision according to His wisdom, and He loves when His servant asks Him at moments of obedience. When a believer sits after Fajr and raises their hands, they are not only asking with words, they are asking with their presence. Their entire being says, "O Allah, I trusted you enough to wake up for you. Now I trust you with my needs." That trust transforms the dua. Many people search for increase in rizq by chasing longer hours, heavier stress, and endless planning. Yet they overlook the spiritual root of provision. Rizq flows where there is obedience, contentment, and reliance. After Fajr, the heart is naturally aligned with these qualities. There is less greed, less fear, and less comparison. The believer remembers that Allah is the provider, not people, not systems, not circumstances. This time also trains the soul in patience. Sitting after Fajr teaches you to pause before the rush of the day. It teaches you that not everything needs to be immediate, that silence has value, that presence with Allah is nourishment. When the soul is nourished, it becomes easier to handle the tests of provision later in the day. Anxiety about money softens. Worry about the future loosens its grip. The heart learns to rest in Allah's decree. The early morning light is a reminder of hope. Just as darkness gives way to light without struggle, Allah brings ease after difficulty without effort from creation. When you witness this daily transition, your heart absorbs a quiet lesson in Tawakkul. If Allah can bring light to the sky so gently, He can bring solutions to your life just as easily. This reflection deepens the impact of any dua made at that time. After Fajr is also when intentions are set. The believer who begins the day with Allah carries that awareness into their work, decisions, and interactions. Rizq earned with the remembrance of Allah carries barakah, even if the amount is small. And rizq earned without remembrance, even if large, can feel empty and heavy. This is why starting the day grounded in worship changes the quality of provision, not just the quantity. Consistency is key. Even a few minutes after Fajr, spent in stillness and remembrance, builds a habit of trust. Over time, the heart becomes more certain that Allah is listening. This certainty is more valuable than immediate results. Because when the heart believes deeply, it stops begging creation and starts relying fully on the Creator. Some mornings will feel heavy. Some days the heart will feel distracted. Still, sitting after Fajr sends a message of sincerity. Allah does not look at perfection, He looks at persistence. Every time you remain seated, every time you whisper a dua, every time you choose not to rush away, you are planting seeds. Seeds of barakah, seeds of calm, seeds of unseen provision that will sprout at the right time. The believer who understands the value of Fajr understands that success does not begin with the world, it begins with Allah. And when Allah is placed first, everything else finds its place. The morning becomes lighter, the day becomes steadier, and the heart moves forward with quiet confidence, knowing that the one who controls the heavens and the earth is also managing every detail of their provision. Seen and unseen rizq is often misunderstood as something limited to money, salary, or material gain. But in reality, rizq is far broader and far deeper than what the hands can hold. Allah's provision reaches every corner of a person's life, touching what is seen and what is felt. When Allah provides, He provides in ways that no system, employer, or effort can fully explain. Money is only one form, and often not the most valuable one. A person may have wealth yet feel restless, anxious, and dissatisfied. Another may have modest means yet sleep with a peaceful heart and wake with gratitude. This difference is not accidental. It is the difference between provision with barakah and provision without it. Barakah is an increase that cannot be measured by numbers. It is the quiet ease in the heart, the smoothness in daily affairs, and the sense that what you have is enough. This feeling itself is rizq from Allah. Health is rizq. The ability to wake up without pain, to breathe without struggle, to move without dependence, is a blessing that is often unnoticed until it is taken away. Many people would trade their wealth for a single day of ease in their body. When Allah grants health, He grants the strength to worship, to work, and to serve others. Without it, even abundant money feels useless. Time is rizq. Some people have hours filled with productivity and purpose, while others feel their days slip away without meaning. Barakah in time allows a person to accomplish more with less effort. A short day can feel full, and a simple routine can feel rich. This type of provision comes when life is aligned with obedience and remembrance of Allah. Peace of mind is rizq. A calm heart is one of the greatest gifts Allah can give. When the heart is at rest, problems feel manageable and hardships feel temporary. Without inner peace, even comfort becomes discomfort. Allah places tranquility into the hearts of those who remember Him, and this tranquility is a form of sustenance that no amount of wealth can replace. Guidance is rizq. Being able to recognize truth, to turn back to Allah after mistakes, and to feel remorse for sins is not something everyone receives. Many people walk through life spiritually blind. unaware of their distance from Allah. When Allah gives guidance, He is giving light, and that light shapes every decision, every intention, and every direction in life. Good character is rizq. Patience, humility, forgiveness, and gratitude are not traits that come from effort alone. They are gifts from Allah. A person with good character finds ease in relationships, respect in society, and reward with Allah. Poor character, even with wealth, creates loneliness and hardship. The company of people who are kind, sincere, and supportive is also rizq, one that protects the heart from isolation and despair. Family is rizq. Loving parents, supportive spouses, obedient children, and peaceful homes are all provisions from Allah. Not every household has warmth, understanding, or mercy. When Allah places love and cooperation within a family, He has given a treasure that sustains the soul daily. Even challenges within family life can be a form of rizq when they bring growth, patience, and closeness to Allah. Knowledge is rizq. Beneficial knowledge shapes the way a person thinks, acts, and reacts. It protects from ignorance, regret, and misguidance. Knowledge that leads a person closer to Allah, that improves their conduct and strengthens their faith, is among the most valuable forms of provision. Without it, even intelligence can become a source of arrogance or confusion. Opportunities are rizq. Being in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, and receiving chances that open new paths are not random events. They are written by Allah. Sometimes an opportunity comes disguised as a challenge or a delay. A closed door can be rizq if it protects from harm, and an unanswered request can be provision if it saves a person from loss. Contentment is rizq. When Allah grants satisfaction with what one has, life becomes lighter. Comparison fades, jealousy weakens, and gratitude grows. Contentment does not mean lack of ambition, but it means trusting Allah's distribution. A content heart is rich even with little, while a discontent heart remains poor even with abundance. Rizq also includes protection. Being saved from accidents, illnesses, harmful relationships, and destructive paths is a form of unseen provision. Many dangers pass by a person without their awareness. Allah's protection surrounds them silently, shielding them from what could have caused pain or regret. This unseen care is one of the most merciful forms of sustenance. When a believer understands that rizq is comprehensive, their dua changes. They stop asking only for more money and begin asking for better lives. They ask for barakah, for peace, for guidance, and for acceptance. They learn that Allah's generosity is not limited to material gain, and that sometimes Allah gives less in one area to give more in another. This understanding also removes envy. When rizq is seen only as wealth, comparison becomes constant. But when rizq is seen in its full form, every person is recognized as receiving something unique from Allah. One may be rich in money, another in peace, another in knowledge, another in family. Allah distributes with wisdom, not randomness. When the heart accepts this, gratitude deepens. A person begins to notice blessings that were previously ignored. They realize that Allah has been providing all along in ways that mattered most. And this awareness transforms life into a continuous experience of receiving from Allah, moment by moment, breath by breath. Consistency after Fajr is not about doing something grand or overwhelming. It is about showing up repeatedly with sincerity. Allah loves deeds that are small but consistent, because consistency reflects truthfulness in the heart. When a believer chooses to remain seated after Fajr day after day, even for a few moments, they are building a quiet relationship with Allah that strengthens over time. This regular presence creates familiarity with stillness, with reflection, and with reliance, and it slowly reshapes the inner world of the believer. The soul learns through repetition. Just as the body becomes stronger through regular movement, the heart becomes stronger through regular remembrance. Sitting after Fajr consistently trains the heart to slow down before the rush of the world begins. It teaches the soul that it does not need to immediately chase responsibilities to feel valuable. Instead, it learns that grounding itself in Allah is the foundation upon which everything else stands. Over time, this practice creates emotional stability that carries through the day. Many people wait for motivation to feel inspired before making dua or remembering Allah, but consistency teaches a deeper lesson. It teaches that worship is not dependent on mood. Some mornings the heart feels light and focused, and other mornings it feels heavy and distracted. Still, showing up consistently sends a message of loyalty to Allah. It says that connection with Allah is not conditional upon ease or emotion, but rooted in commitment. This regular habit also softens the heart. The early morning hours are gentle, and when a person consistently meets Allah in this gentleness, their inner harshness begins to fade. Anger becomes easier to control. Impatience loses its sharp edge. The heart becomes more forgiving, more understanding, and more aware of its own weaknesses. These changes may be subtle, but they accumulate quietly until the believer notices that they are reacting differently to life than before. Consistency after Fajr also builds trust in Allah. When a believer repeatedly asks Allah for guidance, provision, and ease at the start of the day, they begin to internalize the belief that Allah is actively involved in their life. This belief reduces fear about the future. Decisions are made with more calm because the heart feels supported. Even when outcomes are uncertain, there is a sense that Allah is steering events with wisdom. This practice reshapes the way a person views time. Instead of seeing the morning as something to rush through, it becomes something to honor. The believer learns that how the day begins influences how it unfolds. A morning that starts with remembrance tends to carry clarity into work, patience into interactions, and restraint into choices. This effect may not be dramatic, but it is steady and reliable. Over time, consistency creates spiritual sensitivity. The heart becomes more alert to what pleases Allah and what distances from Him. Sins feel heavier and repentance comes faster. Gratitude becomes more natural. The believer starts to notice Allah's help in small details like problems resolving unexpectedly or worries easing without explanation. These moments strengthen faith and reinforce the value of staying consistent. Consistency after Fajr also nurtures discipline without harshness. It teaches the soul to commit gently rather than forcefully. The believer is not pressuring themselves to do long sessions or complicated routines. Even sitting quietly, making simple dua, or reflecting silently counts. This gentleness makes the habit sustainable, which is why it lasts. Sustainable worship is more powerful than intense but short-lived effort. Another effect of this consistency is emotional grounding. Life brings unpredictable challenges, but a heart that begins each day anchored in remembrance is less likely to spiral under pressure. Stressful situations still occur, but the believer carries an inner reference point. They remember the calm of the morning, the closeness to Allah, and this memory acts like a stabilizer throughout the day. Consistency also refines intention. When a person regularly pauses after Fajr, they naturally reflect on why they are doing what they are doing. Work becomes more purposeful. Goals become more aligned. The believer starts asking whether their actions please Allah, rather than only whether they bring success. This shift protects the heart from burnout and emptiness, even when life becomes busy. This habit quietly prepares the heart for acceptance. Allah accepts deeds that come from sincerity and persistence. When a believer consistently turns to Allah in the mornings, their du'as mature. They become less demanding and more trusting. The believer learns to ask with humility, leaving the outcome to Allah. This state of surrender itself is a form of closeness. Even on days when nothing seems to change outwardly, consistency is still working inwardly. Seeds are being planted in the heart. Strength is being built silently. Allah sees every moment of patience, every effort to remain present, every whispered dua. Nothing is wasted. Over time, the believer realizes that consistency after Fajr was not just a habit, but a quiet transformation that shaped their faith, their character, and their relationship with Allah in ways that words cannot fully capture. The dua taught by the Prophet is not long, complex, or difficult to memorize, yet it carries meanings that touch every essential part of a believer's life. When a person recites this dua after Fajr, they are not simply repeating words, they are aligning their needs with what truly benefits them in the sight of Allah. Each phrase is carefully balanced, guiding the heart away from shallow desires and toward lasting goodness. When a believer asks Allah for pure and lawful provision, they are acknowledging that not all rizq is equal. Some provision may increase wealth but decrease peace. Some may bring comfort but remove barakah. By asking for rizqan tayyiban, the believer is asking Allah to filter their sustenance, to give them what nourishes both their body and their soul. This request shows wisdom, because it places quality over quantity and closeness to Allah over temporary gain. Halal provision carries a light within it. It strengthens the heart, makes worship easier, and brings calm into daily life. When income is pure, prayers feel lighter, repentance feels sincere, and gratitude flows naturally. Asking Allah for halal rizq is also an admission of weakness, an acknowledgement that human judgment alone is not enough to navigate the complexities of the world. The believer is saying, "O Allah, guide my earnings, protect me from what will harm my faith, even if I do not recognize it myself." The dua then moves to beneficial knowledge, which highlights that knowledge itself is a form of sustenance. Not all knowledge benefits the heart. Some information increases arrogance, confusion, or distraction. Beneficial knowledge is knowledge that brings a person closer to Allah, improves their conduct, and sharpens their awareness of right and wrong. By asking for beneficial knowledge, the believer is asking Allah to teach them what they need, not simply what they want. This part of the dua also reflects humility. It recognizes that understanding, clarity, and wisdom come from Allah alone. A person may study for years, yet without Allah's help, their knowledge may not transform their character. Beneficial knowledge softens the heart, increases fear of Allah, and translates into action. It helps a believer make better decisions, speak with care, and act with purpose. Asking for this daily after Fajr keeps the heart receptive and teachable. The final part of the dua asks for deeds that are accepted. This is one of the most profound requests a believer can make. Many people perform actions, but not all actions are accepted by Allah. Acceptance depends on sincerity and correctness. When a believer asks Allah to accept their deeds, they are admitting that effort alone is not enough. They are placing their trust in Allah's mercy, hoping that even small actions are given value through divine acceptance. This request protects the heart from pride. It reminds the believer that no matter how consistent or visible their worship may be, acceptance is not guaranteed without Allah's grace. It encourages sincerity over display and intention over appearance. A deed that is accepted carries weight in the sight of Allah, even if it seems small to people. This understanding brings peace because it shifts focus from results to intention. Reciting this dua after Fajr also sets a direction for the entire day. The believer begins the morning asking for provision that pleases Allah, knowledge that benefits them, and actions that are accepted. These three requests shape how the believer approaches work, learning, and behavior throughout the day. They become more mindful of how they earn, what they seek to learn, and why they act. There is also balance in this dua. It addresses the dunya and the akhirah together. Provision supports daily life. Knowledge shapes understanding. Accepted deeds prepare the soul for the hereafter. This balance prevents a believer from becoming overly focused on one aspect of life at the expense of others. It teaches that true success is harmony between worldly responsibility and spiritual growth. Saying this dua consistently after Fajr builds a deep sense of reliance. The believer starts the day acknowledging that Allah controls outcomes. Effort is still made, but it is no longer fueled by anxiety alone. There is trust that whatever comes will come through Allah's wisdom. This trust reduces desperation and brings steadiness into the heart. The calm nature of this dua also matches the calm of the early morning. It is not rushed or demanding. It is sincere and composed, reflecting a heart that knows where its help comes from. Over time, repeating this dua daily shapes the believer's inner dialogue. They begin to think differently about success, knowledge, and worship. Their priorities become clearer, and their expectations become more grounded. This dua is also a reminder that Allah cares about every aspect of a believer's life. He is not only the Lord of worship, but the Lord of work, learning, and effort. When a believer brings all these concerns to Allah at the start of the day, they are living with awareness that nothing is separate from faith. Life itself becomes an act of worship when it begins with sincere supplication. As days pass and this dua becomes part of the morning routine, The believer may notice subtle changes. Income may feel lighter, learning may feel clearer, actions may feel more meaningful. Even when challenges remain, the heart feels supported. This is the unseen effect of turning to Allah with the right questions, at the right time, with the right intention, trusting that the one who hears every whisper knows exactly how to respond. Trusting Allah's timing is one of the deepest tests of faith, especially when it comes to rizq. The human heart is naturally impatient. It wants results quickly, solutions immediately, and certainty without delay. But Allah operates beyond urgency. He works with wisdom, precision, and mercy that the human mind cannot fully comprehend. When provision seems delayed, it is not a sign of neglect, it is often a sign of careful planning. Every person's rizq is written. It was written before we were born, before we made our first choice, before we understood what provision even meant. This knowledge alone should bring comfort, yet the heart still struggles when expectations are not met. Trusting Allah's timing means believing that what has been written will arrive at the exact moment it is meant to, not a second earlier, and not a moment late. Delay does not mean denial. Many du'as are answered in forms that are not immediately recognizable. A person may ask for wealth, and Allah may first give them patience. They may ask for ease, and Allah may first strengthen their character. They may ask for success, and Allah may first remove distractions that would have ruined them. These unseen responses are part of Allah's generosity, even if they feel uncomfortable. At first, sometimes rizq is delayed because the heart is not yet ready to carry it. Wealth without gratitude can harden the heart. Ease without humility can lead to arrogance. Influence without wisdom can cause harm. Allah knows what each soul can handle. When He delays, He is often protecting the believer from a burden they are not prepared to manage. What feels like waiting may actually be mercy in disguise. Trusting Allah's timing also requires letting go of comparison. When a person constantly looks at what others have, impatience grows. The heart begins to question its own worth and Allah's fairness. But Allah does not distribute rizq based on human standards. He distributes according to what benefits each soul. What is perfect for one person may be harmful for another. Comparison blinds the heart to its own blessings. The stories of the prophets teach this lesson clearly. Many of them waited years for relief, clarity, or fulfillment of Allah's promise. Their patience was not passive, it was filled with worship, effort, and trust. They continued to obey Allah even when outcomes were unseen. This kind of patience is powerful because it is rooted in certainty that Allah's plan is always better than personal desire. Trust also grows through remembrance. When a believer consistently remembers Allah, especially in the quiet moments after Fajr, the heart learns to rest. It learns that control does not belong to circumstances, people, or systems, but to Allah alone. This awareness reduces fear and strengthens acceptance. Even when things do not go as planned, the heart remains steady. There are times when rizq arrives suddenly, after long periods of waiting. In those moments, the believer often realizes that the delay was necessary. What arrives feels complete, balanced, and perfectly timed. Had it come earlier, it might have caused stress, distraction, or loss. Allah's timing ensures that provision arrives when it can be received with gratitude rather than fear. Trusting Allah's timing does not mean giving up effort. The believer still works, plans, and strives. But their effort is not driven by panic. It is driven by responsibility and reliance. They do what they can, and they leave what they cannot control to Allah. This balance protects the heart from exhaustion and despair. Another aspect of trust is accepting that some forms of rizq are not meant to come in this life. Allah may withhold certain things to grant something greater in the hereafter. A dua that is not answered in the way hoped for may be stored as reward, erased sins, or protection from harm. Nothing sincere is ever wasted. Every tear, every whispered prayer, every moment of patience is recorded. When a believer truly trusts Allah's timing, anxiety slowly loosens its grip. The future becomes less frightening because it is placed in the hands of the most merciful. The present becomes more bearable because it is seen as part of a larger plan. Even uncertainty begins to feel purposeful rather than chaotic, This trust transforms the heart. Instead of asking why things are delayed, the believer begins to ask what Allah is teaching them in the waiting. They reflect, grow, and strengthen their connection with Allah. The waiting period becomes a time of purification, not punishment. In the end, trusting Allah's timing is an act of worship. It is a silent declaration that Allah knows best, even when the path is unclear. It is choosing peace over panic, faith over fear, and reliance over resentment. And when this trust settles deeply in the heart, the believer walks through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that every provision, every delay, and every outcome is unfolding exactly as it should under the care of the one who never makes a mistake. Gratitude is one of the most powerful keys Allah has placed in the hands of the believer. It is simple in form, yet immense in effect. When a person learns to recognize and appreciate what Allah has already given, their heart opens to more. Allah has promised that gratitude leads to increase, and this increase is not limited to material gain. It reaches into the unseen parts of life, softening hardships, strengthening faith, and expanding contentment. Gratitude begins with awareness. Many blessings surround a person constantly, yet they remain unnoticed because the heart is focused on what is missing. The ability to wake up, to breathe freely, to think clearly, and to move without assistance are blessings that pass quietly through daily life. When a believer pauses, especially after Fajr, and reflects on these gifts, the heart naturally humbles itself before Allah. This humility is the foundation of true gratitude. A grateful heart sees Allah's care in small details. It notices protection that went unseen, problems that resolved quietly, and difficulties that did not reach their full potential. Often, a believer is saved from harm without ever realizing it. Gratitude acknowledges this unseen protection. It recognizes that not everything that did not happen was coincidence, but mercy. This realization strengthens trust and deepens reliance on Allah. Gratitude also reshapes the way provision is experienced. Two people may receive the same amount of rizq, yet one feels constantly dissatisfied while the other feels content. The difference lies in gratitude. When a person thanks Allah for what they have, that provision feels lighter and more meaningful. It becomes a source of peace rather than pressure. Gratitude removes the constant hunger for more and replaces it with appreciation for enough. This does not mean that a grateful person lacks ambition. Gratitude and striving can exist together. The believer works hard and seeks improvement, but their heart is not attached to outcomes alone. They recognize that effort is their responsibility, while results belong to Allah. Gratitude allows them to pursue goals without losing inner balance. Success becomes a blessing, not a source of arrogance, and setbacks become lessons, not punishments. Gratitude also protects the heart from comparison. In a world where people constantly measure themselves against others, gratitude acts as a shield. When a believer focuses on what Allah has given them personally, the achievements and possessions of others lose their power. Envy fades and sincerity grows. The heart becomes occupied with thanking Allah instead of questioning His distribution. Expressing gratitude strengthens the relationship with Allah. When a believer thanks Allah regularly, they are acknowledging His presence in their life. This acknowledgement nurtures closeness. Just as gratitude deepens bonds between people, it deepens the bond between the servant and the Creator. The believer begins to feel seen, cared for, and supported, which increases their confidence in turning to Allah during difficulties. Gratitude also transforms hardships. While it may seem difficult to be grateful during challenges, gratitude does not require liking the hardship. It requires trusting that Allah's wisdom is present within it. A believer may thank Allah for the opportunity to grow, for the patience being built, or for the sins being erased. This perspective does not remove pain, but it gives pain meaning, making it easier to endure. When gratitude becomes a habit, the heart becomes more resilient. Instead of collapsing under pressure, it looks for lessons. Instead of complaining immediately, it reflects. This resilience is itself a form of provision. It allows the believer to move through life's ups and downs with steadiness rather than instability. Gratitude also brings clarity. When a person consistently thanks Allah, they become more aware of what truly matters. Temporary losses feel less devastating, and lasting values gain importance. The believer begins to prioritize faith, character, and relationships over constant accumulation. This clarity simplifies life and reduces inner conflict. The act of verbal gratitude carries special weight. Saying words of thanks to Allah reinforces the feeling within the heart. It turns silent recognition into conscious worship. Whether through simple phrases of praise or personal words spoken quietly, verbal gratitude trains the tongue to align with the heart. Over time, the believer finds themselves naturally praising Allah in moments of ease and difficulty alike. Gratitude also encourages generosity. When a person recognizes that what they have is from Allah, they become more willing to share. They understand that giving does not reduce provision, but purifies it. Sharing becomes an expression of trust rather than fear. This generosity, whether through wealth, time, or kindness, invites further blessings and strengthens community bonds. Another effect of gratitude is emotional balance. A grateful heart is less prone to extreme highs and lows. Success does not intoxicate it, and loss does not destroy it. This balance allows the believer to remain grounded. They experience joy without arrogance and sorrow without despair. Such emotional steadiness is rare, and it is a gift nurtured through consistent gratitude. Gratitude also refines intention. When a believer thanks Allah for opportunities, they become more conscious of how they use them. Work is done with integrity. Time is valued. Relationships are treated with care. Gratitude turns blessings into responsibilities, encouraging the believer to use what they have in ways that please Allah. When gratitude is practiced daily, especially in the quiet moments after Fajr, it sets the tone for the entire day. The believer begins the day recognizing abundance rather than lack. This mindset influences decisions, reactions, and interactions. Challenges feel less overwhelming, and blessings feel more vivid. Allah loves gratitude because it reflects recognition of His lordship and mercy. A grateful servant acknowledges dependence without resentment and receives without entitlement. This state of the heart attracts divine favor. Increase comes not only in what is visible but in what is felt. Peace deepens, faith strengthens, and contentment settles gently within the soul. Over time, the believer realizes that gratitude itself was one of the greatest provisions Allah granted them. It allowed them to see beauty in simplicity, strength in patience, and mercy in every stage of life. Through gratitude, life becomes a continuous dialogue of receiving and thanking, a rhythm that sustains the heart no matter what circumstances unfold.